What if the secret to stronger muscles at 80, at 90, and even beyond was not a pharmaceutical drug, not an expensive protein supplement, not an exhausting exercise regimen that aging joints simply cannot sustain, but a fruit? A sweet, juicy, widely available, completely ordinary fruit that most people eat occasionally as a snack or a dessert without ever suspecting that it contains a collection of biologically active compounds that scientists are now calling some of the most powerful natural muscle-preserving, muscle-rebuilding, and muscle-strengthening agents ever identified in the plant kingdom. Research coming out of some of the world's most respected universities, including Harvard, the University of Illinois, and institutions across Europe, is pointing to one fruit above all others as the most compelling dietary intervention for fighting the muscle loss that robs older adults of their strength, their independence, and their quality of life. That fruit is the pomegranate. And what pomegranate does inside aging muscle tissue, at the cellular, mitochondrial, and molecular level, is so remarkable that researchers studying it have used words like extraordinary, unprecedented, and paradigm-shifting to describe their findings. By the time this video ends, you will understand exactly why. And you will never look at this ancient fruit the same way again. Why muscle strength after 70 is a life or death issue. Before we dive into the science of pomegranate and muscle, it is essential to understand the true stakes of what we are talking about. Because muscle loss in older adults is not a cosmetic problem or a minor inconvenience. It is a profound medical crisis that is directly shortening lives and stealing independence from tens of millions of people around the world every single year. Sarcopenia, the age-related loss of skeletal muscle mass and functional strength, affects an estimated 10 to 40% of older adults globally, with prevalence rising sharply with each decade of life. After the age of 60, the body loses muscle at an accelerating rate that compounds year over year. By 70, many adults have lost 20 to 30% of the peak muscle mass they carried in their 40s. By 80 and 90, the losses can be catastrophic, reducing formerly active, independent individuals to a state where rising from a chair, climbing 3 steps, or carrying a bag of groceries represents a genuine physical challenge. The consequences extend far beyond weakness and fatigue. Muscle is a metabolic organ of extraordinary importance. It is the primary site of glucose disposal in the body, meaning that muscle loss directly drives insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. It is the primary reservoir of amino acids that the immune system draws on during illness, meaning that low muscle mass dramatically increases vulnerability to infection and slows recovery from surgery and hospitalization. And it is the primary physical defense against falls, the leading cause of injury-related death in adults over 65. Research published in the Journal of Gerontology has found that low muscle mass is an independent predictor of all-cause mortality in older adults, meaning that regardless of any other health factor, less muscle means shorter life. This is why the discovery of a natural, delicious, affordable fruit that demonstrably fights sarcopenia at the cellular level is not a wellness trend. It is a public health breakthrough. The pomegranate discovery that shocked researchers. The story of pomegranate and muscle health took a dramatic turn in 2016 when researchers at the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne in Switzerland published a landmark study in the journal Nature Medicine that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The researchers had been studying a compound found in pomegranates called punicalagin, a large polyphenol molecule that, when metabolized by gut bacteria, produces a smaller compound called urolithin A. What they discovered about urolithin A and its effects on aging muscle cells was, by their own description, one of the most significant nutritional findings in the field of aging biology in decades. Urolithin A activates a cellular process called mitophagy, the selective recycling and removal of damaged, dysfunctional mitochondria from muscle cells. Mitochondria are the energy-producing organelles inside every cell in the body, often described as the cell's power plants. In young, healthy muscle cells, mitochondria are numerous, efficient, and regularly refreshed through a quality control process that removes damaged mitochondria and replaces them with new, functional ones. But as we age, this mitophagy process slows dramatically. damaged mitochondria accumulate inside aging muscle cells, producing less energy, generating more cellular waste, and triggering the inflammatory signals that drive muscle protein breakdown. The result is the progressive energy deficit and structural deterioration that we experience as age-related muscle weakness and fatigue. Urolithin A, produced from pomegranate's punicolagen by the gut microbiome, essentially reactivates this mitochondrial recycling system, clearing out the damaged power plants and stimulating the production of fresh, efficient mitochondria that restore the energy-generating capacity of aging muscle cells. In the Swiss study, older animals treated with urolithin A showed a 42% increase in running endurance compared to untreated controls, a finding that translated directly into improved muscle function and physical performance. The human clinical research that followed has been equally compelling. The human clinical evidence. What happens in aging bodies? The animal research on urolithin A was extraordinary enough to capture immediate scientific attention. But it was the human clinical trials that followed which truly validated pomegranate's place as a muscle-strengthening superfood for older adults. A landmark randomized controlled trial published in the journal Cell Metabolism, one of the most prestigious journals in biological science, enrolled older adults between the ages of 65 and 90 and supplemented them with urolithin A derived from pomegranate extract daily for 4 months. The results were remarkable across multiple measurements of muscle health and physical function. Participants in the urolithin A group showed significant improvements in mitochondrial gene expression in muscle tissue, direct molecular evidence that the mitophagy reactivation observed in animal studies was occurring in aging human muscle cells as well. They demonstrated measurable improvements in muscle endurance, assessed by the distance walked in a 6-minute walk test, a standardized clinical measurement of functional physical capacity used widely in geriatric medicine. They showed improvements in hand grip strength, one of the single strongest predictors of overall mortality and physical independence in older adults that researchers have ever identified. And they exhibited significant reductions in plasma acetylcarnitines, biomarkers of mitochondrial dysfunction that accumulate when muscle cells cannot efficiently process fatty acids for energy. The researchers concluded that pomegranate-derived urolithin A represents the first clinically validated natural compound capable of improving mitochondrial health in aging human muscle, a conclusion that earned coverage in scientific publications worldwide and accelerated a wave of follow-up research that continues to this day. The anti-inflammatory dimension, fighting inflammaging in muscle tissue. The mitophagy activation story is the most dramatic chapter in pomegranate's muscle health narrative, but it is not the only one. Pomegranate is one of the most antioxidant-dense fruits ever analyzed, containing 3 times the antioxidant activity of red wine and 4 times that of green tea when measured by total polyphenol content. This extraordinary antioxidant capacity translates directly into anti-inflammatory effects that are profoundly relevant to aging muscle health. Chronic low-grade systemic inflammation. The persistent smoldering inflammatory state that researchers have named inflammaging and that is nearly universal in adults over 60 is now recognized as one of the primary molecular drivers of sarcopenia. Inflammatory cytokines, particularly interleukin-6, interleukin-1 beta, and tumor necrosis factor alpha, directly promote muscle protein breakdown while simultaneously suppressing the anabolic signaling pathways that drive muscle protein synthesis. In an inflamed metabolic environment, the muscles are caught in a perpetual state of being broken down faster than they can be rebuilt, regardless of how much protein is consumed or how regularly exercise is performed. Pomegranate's polyphenols, including punicolagens, ellagic acid, and anthocyanins, have been shown in multiple clinical studies to significantly reduce circulating levels of all 3 of these pro-sarcopenic inflammatory cytokines. A study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry found that daily pomegranate juice consumption for 6 weeks produced significant reductions in interleukin-6 and C-reactive protein levels in older adults with inflammatory conditions. By reducing the inflammatory cytokine environment that drives muscle breakdown, pomegranate essentially lifts the biochemical suppression that has been preventing aging muscles from responding effectively to protein intake and exercise. It does not just fight muscle loss directly through mitophagy. It also removes the inflammatory roadblock that has been preventing the body's own muscle-building machinery from functioning at its potential. Nitric oxide, blood flow, and muscle nutrient delivery. There is a third mechanism through which daily pomegranate consumption supports muscle strength in older adults that is as clinically significant as the first two: its extraordinary effect on nitric oxide production and blood flow to skeletal muscle. Nitric oxide is the signaling molecule that causes blood vessels to dilate, increasing blood flow and the delivery of oxygen, glucose, and amino acids to working muscle tissue. Robust nitric oxide production is essential not just for cardiovascular health, but for the moment-to-moment nutrient delivery that muscle cells depend on for energy production, protein synthesis, and repair. As we age, nitric oxide production declines, blood vessels stiffen, and the delivery of nutrients to peripheral muscle tissue, particularly in the legs and arms, becomes progressively less efficient. Pomegranate juice is one of the most potent natural nitric oxide boosters ever studied. Research published in the journal Nitric Oxide demonstrated that pomegranate extract significantly increased the activity of endothelial nitric oxide synthase, the enzyme responsible for producing nitric oxide in blood vessel walls, while simultaneously protecting existing nitric oxide from being destroyed by oxidative stress. A separate study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that athletes who consumed pomegranate extract before exercise experienced significantly less muscle soreness, faster recovery of strength following exercise, and reduced markers of exercise-induced muscle damage compared to a placebo group. For older adults whose post-exercise recovery is dramatically slower than it was in their youth, this accelerated recovery effect means that resistance exercise, the most powerful tool for rebuilding sarcopenic muscle, can be performed more frequently and more effectively when pomegranate is a daily dietary fixture. The testosterone and hormonal muscle connection. Here is a dimension of pomegranate's muscle-building benefits that surprises most people and that has generated significant excitement in the field of age-related hormonal decline research. Testosterone, the primary anabolic hormone responsible for muscle protein synthesis in both men and women, declines progressively with age, falling by approximately 1 to 2% per year after the age of 30 in men and declining sharply in women during and after menopause. This age-related hormonal decline is a major contributor to the accelerating muscle loss of sarcopenia, as lower testosterone levels mean weaker anabolic signaling to muscle cells, reduced muscle protein synthesis rates, and a metabolic environment that increasingly favors fat storage over muscle maintenance. A remarkable clinical study published in the journal Endocrine Abstracts found that drinking pomegranate juice daily for 2 weeks produced a 24% average increase in salivary testosterone levels in both male and female participants, a finding that attracted widespread attention from both the scientific community and the general public. The proposed mechanism involves pomegranate's powerful antioxidant compounds, protecting testosterone molecules from oxidative degradation in the bloodstream, while simultaneously inhibiting the enzyme aromatase, which converts testosterone to estrogen. For older adults whose declining testosterone is contributing to sarcopenia, this natural hormonal support, delivered through a daily serving of whole fruit or pure juice, represents a meaningful and entirely side effect-free complement to their muscle preservation strategy. How to eat pomegranate daily for maximum muscle benefit. Getting the full muscle strengthening benefit of pomegranate requires consistency, the right form, and a few practical considerations about quantity and combination. The most nutritionally complete way to consume pomegranate is as whole, fresh pomegranate arils, the jewel-like seeds, because they deliver the full spectrum of punicalagins, ellagic acid, anthocyanins, and fiber that work synergistically in the gut to maximize urolithin A production. One whole pomegranate yields approximately half a cup of arils, providing a therapeutic dose of polyphenols with minimal effort. Sprinkled over morning oatmeal, stirred into plain yogurt, or eaten as a standalone snack, pomegranate arils are one of the most enjoyable ways to add a genuinely therapeutic food to a daily routine. Pure, unsweetened pomegranate juice is a highly effective alternative for days when fresh pomegranate is unavailable or inconvenient, with research consistently showing significant health benefits from daily consumption of 4 to 8 ounces. It is critical to choose 100% pure pomegranate juice, with no added sugar or fruit juice blends, as many commercial products labeled as pomegranate juice contain predominantly cheaper juices like apple or grape, with only a small percentage of actual pomegranate. Pomegranate extract supplements, standardized to their punicalagin and ellagic acid content, offer the most concentrated and consistent delivery of the active compounds, and are particularly useful for older adults who want to ensure they are receiving a therapeutic dose regardless of seasonal fruit availability. For maximum synergy, combining daily pomegranate with a consistent resistance exercise routine, even gentle seated resistance exercises or resistance band work, and adequate daily protein intake of at least 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight creates the complete trifecta of muscle-preserving inputs that aging bodies respond to most powerfully. Pomegranate removes the inflammatory and mitochondrial barriers to muscle health. Protein provides the raw material for muscle protein synthesis, and resistance exercise delivers the mechanical stimulus that tells the body to prioritize building and maintaining muscle tissue. Together, these three pillars can genuinely transform the trajectory of muscle aging, even at 90. Motivational conclusion: 90 years old and still getting stronger. For most people, that sentence sounds like a fantasy. But the biology says otherwise. The human body retains a remarkable and persistent capacity to build, repair, and strengthen muscle tissue at virtually any age, when it is given the right environment, the right nutrition, and the right signals to do so. Pomegranate, with its ancient roots in human civilization and its extraordinary modern scientific validation, is one of the most powerful tools we have ever identified for creating that environment. It reactivates the cellular recycling systems that aging has slowed. It clears the inflammatory fog that has been suppressing the body's muscle-building machinery. It opens the blood vessels that carry the nutrients muscle cells are waiting for. And it does all of this in a form that is delicious, affordable, and available at virtually every grocery store on the planet. Stronger muscles at 90 are not a fantasy. They are a biological possibility that is waiting for you to reach for it, one pomegranate at a time.